Welcome to episode 65 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today I'm going across the Atlantic Ocean to interview a man who found purpose making people laugh on Facebook, and he also coaches others to enjoy a better life. Mike Coote lives in the United Kingdom, where he has served as an executive business coach working with very senior people in government and business. In 2020, he founded a group on Facebook called Uplifting, Inspiring, Informative, and Funny Quotes for Everybody. It's a mouthful, but being a member of Mike's group has certainly enhanced my Facebook experience. He spends about 20 minutes a day finding material, but still manages to post an enormous amount of content designed to make people laugh or to cause them to think. He started the group during the COVID mess just to help people feel a little better about themselves. Today, he has 4,300 members. Humor is tricky today in a world where people are so easily offended and the cancel culture is so prevalent. But Mike manages to make his group safe and wholesome by keeping drama out. You won't find any political posts or other things that will divide people, but he does share material related to his strong Christian faith. In the interview, Mike talks about his varied life, which included time serving in the South Africa Special Forces, as a Baptist minister, a crisis counselor, and as a life coach. To tell us more about his life after 50 and his wonderful Facebook group, please welcome Michael Coote to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Mike. I really appreciate the time. I've wanted to do this for a long time because you run one of my favorite Facebook groups. And so welcome to my show, and I hope we have a great conversation because there are lots of things I want to know about you and how you got this group started.
My pleasure. My apologies. You're right. We've taken a long time. No, not you. I've taken a long time to respond to you. So it's good. That's why I set a date in the diary, put it into my schedule, and now here we are.
And now my audience is going to say, you don't sound like us. Where are you from?
I live in the UK. Well, I was born in Cape Town, South Africa. I have this blend of South Africa and UK that comes together. It's rather amusing to me because here in the UK, my accent gives me an edge because people say, oh, well, I like that accent. And then, of course, when I go to South Africa, people can hear a little bit of an English accent in me and they say, oh, you're becoming an Englishman. And then when I go to the States, people say, I just love your accent. So it's always a little bit of an edge that I have in terms of my accent. And this is just who I am.
That's neat. And are you married?
I am married.
Okay.
Yes, it is a second marriage for me. Very sad. And I say this very sadly, my first marriage failed after 38 years. And when you've been together for 38 years and it doesn't work, my goodness, it was some hard times, really difficult time. But God has been very good. And, yes, I am happily married. And in July, I celebrate my third wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's fun. And we had talked before we had started recording that you do have some children, but they're scattered around the world.
I do. It's my son, Anthony, 42 years of age, lives here in the UK in a place called Rugby. And Rugby is where the game of rugby first started.
Okay.
So it's a town that's built up around that. Then I have a younger son. He is 40 years of age, Greg, your namesake, and he lives in South Africa. And then my daughter, Sarah, 36 years of age, she lives in South Africa as well. And I was telling you that between them, they've managed to produce 12 children, 12 grandchildren.
That's incredible.
Staggering.
Yes. Do you get to go to South Africa to visit them?
I haven't been back to South Africa for 5 years.
Wow.
I haven't seen my children there for 5 years. The pandemic, of course, just closed down things. And there are 2 grandchildren that I've yet to meet in South Africa. And just 2-3 days ago, I bought tickets for Elaine, my wife, and myself. In September, late September, we are going to South Africa.
Oh, fun. That'll be a great adventure. The miracle of technology, things like this, the Zoom calls, which are connecting us across continents, so it lets you keep in touch with your grandkids wherever they may be in the world, and that's neat.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
The thing that I wanted to talk to you about first was your Facebook channel. the uplifting, inspiring, informative, and funny quotes for everybody. How did that come about?
Sometimes I ask myself the same question, Ray. How on earth did it ever come across? In the middle, no, not in the middle of the pandemic, about a couple of months into the pandemic, which was our first lockdown here in the UK. We went through 2 lockdowns, and I would imagine that you've had variants of that in the US as well. The first lockdown was a long one, and because of the fact we couldn't get out, I couldn't go to clients. I'm not much of a Facebooker, says he, starting a Facebook group. And just thinking to myself, I wonder if there's a way that I could just help people to feel a bit better about themselves, maybe have a laugh or two. Of course, it's going to represent my faith. And at the same time, let's put some stuff in there that people might just enjoy reading. Let's see what happened. And it went from just me, and we now have over 4,300 people in the group.
That's incredible.
And I do nothing to grow the group. It grows organically, which is wonderful.
That is neat. And it's uplifting. It truly is. It's just funny. It's things that you find on the internet. Where do you get all that content that you're posting on there? You must live on the internet.
I actually don't. I'm quite rigorous in my discipline when it comes to how much time I spend. I spend about 20 minutes a day sourcing material. So I look at the uplifting, encouraging, inspirational, and funny, and I then think to myself, so there's a range of different groups I go to. Of course, I am on some other social media. And just as people send me things and I discover things as I'm getting things ready for coaching, so I just save them, and then they become part of future offerings in the group.
And these are just funny jokes and funny memes that are designed to bring a smile, which is a welcome oasis in a sea of what can be very negative and political content on Facebook and other social media sites. So thank you for putting this together, because it has really enhanced my Facebook experience.
I'm pleased about that, Greg. I really am.
Have you had any reaction from other members about the content that you're producing?
I get a lot of response from people, private messages, people who contact me through other media, and they just say, Mike, thank you for taking the time to do that. And thank you for, and just your question is, where on earth do you get your stuff? Because it's meant to be funny, encouraging, uplifting. It's meant to be informative. And the reality is that there are times that I love looking back on the group myself, because I think, I remember posting that, and that was good. And I can see what's tweaking people's attention and what's not.
Mm-hmm. Is there a difference between the US and the UK cultures when it comes to humor? You could probably be getting yourself in trouble with one group by posting things about another.
Yeah, it's culturally we speak English, right? We speak British English, and of course you speak American English, which are sometimes a little bit different from each other. Culturally, of course, you have I'm talking about the US, got this wide range of culture from west to east, from north to south. And so there are particular groups, particular people that I've seen have come on and then have dropped back out again. And I can only presume that it's because they didn't enjoy the particular route that I was busy taking it. Some have said I've made it too faith-centric. I don't think I've made it too faith-centric. At the same time, my faith is important to me.
Exactly.
Therefore, I am going to speak about that. I do, and I think you've noticed, Greg, I stay away from, as much as possible, political statements. It's easy to fall back into divisiveness of politics. And at the moment that happened, I sent a private message to people and just say, my rules state, let's be careful of. And so I ask people just to be aware of it.
That's a very good point.
Culturally, some people, they love it. Other people, they don't, and they haven't remained members. 4,300, I think, organic growth, it does say something about the attractiveness of the group.
That's incredible, because you started it in 2020. So just about
2020.
Yep. Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
And 4,300 members says a lot. I agree. People are looking for humor, and humor can be difficult. We seem to have lost as a culture the ability to laugh at ourselves and laugh at things around us. So I'm thankful to you for pointing some of these funnier aspects about ourselves out to everybody else. And you're very vulnerable with your group and talking about things that you're doing that be considered funny and inspirational. So that's neat. You haven't had
No,
any,
it's good.
any pushback on your faith a little bit with some people have dropped off?
I've had some pushback on my faith, and there are some members now who continually push back at me, and quite continually. And I just say to them, it's great. I don't mind you not having the same faith stance as I have. I am going to speak about my faith stance. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put it in your face. I'm not going to make it so, guess what? You've got to be a Christian in order to be part of this group.
Right.
No, people are people. The one thing I know about the US, and I've been very blessed and very privileged to spend a lot of time in the US, Greg. Just before the pandemic, I was spending about 5 months out of every 12 in the States doing work. One thing I have found in the US, though, is that, my goodness, people like to fight each other pretty quickly about differing Republican, Democrat. We've gone there lots of times. Faith, non-faith, we've gone there many times. Guns, no guns, we've gone there many times. So these things, I do walk a line where I just remind people, let's make the group worth something rather than it becoming just another group where people fight each other.
Like I said earlier, it is an oasis on the internet because it's where people can have fun and joke around and just laugh at some of the memes and things that you post on there. So yes, try and maintain that. That's really good. How do you make your money then? If you're not making any money off of this group, you're just doing it as a labor of love to spread some joy and humor and fun on the internet. What do you do for a living?
I have two things that I do for a living, and I've done them for the past, my goodness, 35, 36 years. Can I give you a brief potted history with that?
Sure, please.
I'm born in South Africa, bred in South Africa, and at 19 years of age, I joined the military. And it was a 12-month call-up. So national service was very much part of the South African regime at that moment in time. But I always wanted, and I've always been the type of person who wants to make something a little bit more of himself rather than just simply, I don't want to sound elitist, but I don't just want to be like the rest of the crowd. And so I joined up for what is called 2-year short service. So I voluntarily gave another year of my life. The funny thing was that at the end of the first year national service, Parliament backdated a bill government backdated a bill in Parliament, and they made everybody stay for 2 years. Thing was, I had volunteered, so I got a lump sum of money for my volunteering, which was lovely.
That is
We were
nice.
all in the same boot. It was lovely. I became a second lieutenant. I went through 10 months worth of officers training, harsh officers training. South Africa was fighting a war at the time. 6 months later, I became a full lieutenant, 2-pip. And just before I was getting ready to clear out of the army, so my 2 years were almost finished, I was approached by our special forces in South Africa, a group called the Reckies. And it's by invitation only. And they said, Lieutenant, we've been watching you. We'd love you to try out. Now, think of your Navy SEALs. Think of Delta Force and then put the Reckies in alongside them because they would easily stand up to the same rigors, the same tremendous amount of hardship. And of course, they have the traditional Hell Week. And Hell Week started with 240 men. Hell Week finished with 41.
Wow.
And I was still part of the 41. And so I then went through another 6 months worth of Special Forces training.
All that training for
which
6 months?
Yep. I had to sign on though for another 4 years. So I stayed just over 6 years in the military. And the thing was, again, a lump sum of money paid to me for joining the Special Forces, and one jump in rank as well. So I became a captain. And I was a captain, and after 6 months, I got through Special Forces training, and for the next 3.5 years, I was operational on 3 tours of duty. That was the agreement, 3 consecutive tours of duty. And then I knew that I had enough. So that was my army career. Came out of the military, a confused young man. I was 25, a mixed up young man suffering PTSD, although not knowing it, and started working in a construction company. But I was studying in the morning, I was working in a construction company in the afternoon, and I was working in a local church in the evening. And after 4.5 years, I became a full-time ordained Baptist pastor.
Wow.
So I changed from Captain Michael Coote to the Reverend Michael Coote, which was quite a quantum leap when you think. It really is. And for the next almost 9 years, I was a full-time ordained Baptist pastor. Loved my time in the ministry. When I left the pastorate, I started a small business in South Africa. That small business grew to 22 strong. I sold it to 2 directors, and then I made the move here and started a business here again. And here I am. I'm an executive business coach. I have this immense privilege of coaching very senior men and women, both in government and in private business. I coached, this is going back some 15 years, I coached a person in government. I shan't tell you the name because I'm not allowed to. So senior that I had to be or to receive my top security clearance.
My goodness.
From MI6. And that was an interesting little process to be security cleared by the government. And of course, my children had to be security cleared as well. And I can always remember phoning my boys up and saying to them, "You're in trouble now. MI6 is going to find out all the stuff you did do." And they tell me about it. It was just a standing joke. And for the past 30 years, I've been really full-time in my own business. It's called My Coote Coaching. I do employ people. I'm very blessed and privileged to be able to do that. As a side, though, my initial training, I was a crisis counselor. So I retain and I do a fair amount of crisis counseling, where families are breaking up or children are in trouble, if there's some form of addictive personality or some form of addiction, either alcohol or some type of drugs. And I still love my counseling ministry. So I counsel in 2 ways. Yes, I counsel from a faith perspective, but I also counsel from a non-faith perspective. And that gives me this unique ability to cross that divide, because a lot of people, of course, would want counseling from a faith perspective, but there's a non-Christian world, you know yourself, Rick,
exactly,
that don't want to hear about the statement of Christ. And therefore I counsel as well from a non-faith perspective. I have a master's in psychology. So those are latest studies, and that just helps me with that. A master's in psychology, a bachelor of theology, and here I am.
That's very cool. When you were in the military as special services, didn't you have to get a special security clearance for that?
Oh, I had to, yeah.
Yeah, so I would imagine.
South Africa, only at any given time, there were 200 recce's at any given time in South Africa.
That's right. So you had moved up to the UK, and that's why you had to go through the security clearance again.
That's correct.
What brought you back to the UK? Why did you decide to move north rather than stay in South Africa?
Yeah, that's a good question, Greg. It really is. Number one, financial opportunities. South Africa was busy going through a tremendously difficult time as it moved from an apartheid country into a fully democratic country. And unfortunately, with apartheid, and I'm sure you know the apartheid policies, the racist policies in South Africa, where the pendulum had swung all one way towards the white people, as Nelson Mandela was brought in as the first elected democratic president, rightfully, my goodness, we had to change. But the pendulum swung the other way, and now white people were struggling to get any type of work, any type of advancement. And the government passed a bill which said that any company that worked with any company that the government did business with. So you see the link?
Yeah.
My company was working with companies that were working with the government, had to be at least 50% Black owned.
Okay.
Or else those companies had to sever ties.
Oh my goodness.
And I wasn't willing to simply say to anybody, come and be my partner, simply for the sake of having a Black and a white person there, because of course there's specialist coaching that is needed to get a person up to the standard that I attempt in my own business. I sold it to my 2 directors, and I came across here and started a business.
And as an executive coach, you said you're working with the business leaders or the top folks at companies. So
I'm very privileged.
People don't realize that they have unique needs, and desires of their own, and people think that they're their boss. They already make all the decisions and things like that, but they also struggle with a lot of inferiority, I would imagine. So are you coaching them on that or more business practices?
It's both and, Greg. It's fascinating to hear you say that. Step into the world of athletics for a moment. Any athlete who has achieved anything in the world of athletics or any sport, and I'm talking about American football, your American football, soccer, football here, you name it, normally has a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it that when people step into business and they want to achieve the heights, that they would then frown upon a coach?
Exactly.
It's exactly the same principle. If you want to excel, have somebody who stands off objectively from you and is able to speak to you in a way which of course is warm, in a way which of course is acceptive in the right sense, but in a way which is direct as well.
Coaches are great at pointing out blind spots as well, things that you're not aware of yourself. And that can be hard for people to hear, but it's so important. And that's why a coach needs to step out of his or her comfort zone to really engage their clients and tell them things that other people aren't going to hear. Or the other people aren't willing to tell them because they want to maintain the friendship or whatever the case might be. Everybody wants to be popular.
Not willing to tell them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you've had some good success with that?
I've had some remarkable success, Greg. It's I know who I am. I'm a 67-year-old man living in the UK with 3 children and 12 grandchildren. And I know my weaknesses. I know my challenges. I know the things that I struggle with. And yet, there are men and women across this country, across South Africa, across the US, and certainly in many places in Europe, who say, Mike, I don't know what I would have done without you. But I look at myself metaphorically in the mirror and I think, I'm just Mike Coote. But obviously my studies, my background, my experience, who I am, has meant something to them. And I've got relationships that go 8, 9, 10 years in terms of coaching relationships.
What did you do after you turned 50 that really gave you life and invigorated you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I know your site is, what is the full name of your site?
Forward from 50.
Forward from 50, that's the one. I didn't do anything particularly from 50. I've just always been that man who says, I've got a part to play.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I've got a part to play. Sometimes I feel my goodness, why do I still have a part to play? But the reality is that I have a part to play. And people seem to be drawn both to who I am and also to the way that we coach here in my coaching. It staggers me, Greg. It staggers me that men, women who are in charge of companies who are turning over tens of billions of pounds a year with employees in the range of between 70 and 90,000 employees in 42, 43 countries across this world say to me, hey, Mike, I need your opinion on something. I think to myself, why? It's such a thing. Why? And yet they still, that's why my relationships are retained over these many years with some very senior people. So I'm very blessed, very privileged.
So that speaks a lot about your character, that people trust you enough to come to you with the vulnerability to ask your opinion about what they might be doing wrong or something that they need to improve to make themselves and their companies better.
A huge word, Greg, trust. You establish trust, make sure that you establish those trust relationships. And indeed, you said, what did I do at 50? Nothing different from what I did for the last 25, 30 years. Here I am at 67. The official age of retirement here in the UK was 65. I'm 67. And I have more work now at 67 years of age than I had at 50 years of age. And I think to myself, it's always that, why? And yet I also know that we provide a service, we provide something which enables people in a way that they're not receiving anywhere else.
That is so reassuring to me because here in America, it seems as though there's a tendency to push people when they get to be 55, 60, 65, push them out to the door, to the sideline. Thank you for your service. And there's so much more that men and women have to offer. So I'm glad to see that you're not giving up, but that you're also encouraging other people to pursue their dreams and utilize their talents and skills in ways that they can still make a difference.
Always. And of course, this age, let me assure you, my years in the military come back and greet me sometimes in the morning, and they remind me about a knee that has had 5 major operations. The first one because of a bad parachute. I have my parachute wings as well. You had to in the Special Forces. And one of the jumps just went wrong, and I put my knee around a tree, and that didn't do much good. Quite amazing. Sometimes I get out of bed in the morning and I think, oh yeah, I feel every single moment of folly from my younger years resting in my body. So I laugh at myself a lot. I've learned to do that. Know that I'm not I know that I'm a very imperfect person, let me assure you. And I also know that while I've achieved and done a lot in my life, there is still much that lies ahead of me. So you're right. 67. Yeah. I have no plan for closing the business. Not yet.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. How do people find purpose after they turn 55 or 60 when they're still struggling with that? If they're losing a job that they've had or their business is closed down, whatever gave them purpose for years is taken away, what can people do to regain that sense of purpose?
That is maybe the $64 question. It really is. How do you regain purpose when something that you've set a large proportion of your life towards is suddenly removed from you? And I don't want to be blithe or just give you a flippant type answer. But the reality is this: you have to retain an openness to what there is that's out there. I must tell you, when I first came across to the UK, because I was in the process of starting a business, I didn't have any means of supporting myself. I did have a certain amount of capital I had brought from South Africa with me. But I can tell you that I worked in a fast food restaurant and I was the dishwasher. And I did 16-hour shifts, 8 hours back to back, because I got 2 meals and I was making enough so that I could continue to pursue my dream of starting a business. Be open to the possibility. Be open to the fact that sometimes at 50 or maybe just slightly older, you might need to take a step backwards, which might in fact turn out to be a step forward. You might have to take a sideways step. And again, I want to say to you, Greg, and I'm sure that many of your listeners would know, at this moment in time, having a coach who can talk you, help you, who can ask the right questions to you so that you can start filling in some of the blanks, that's when a coach really comes into their own. Not to say this is what you should be doing, but to ask questions which help a person point themselves in the right direction. There are countless opportunities. I look at myself at 25 years of age. Was I a wise person? Obviously, certain people thought so. They made me a captain in the military and gave me command of company. Certain amount of wisdom attached to that, I think. Was I a wise person in the ministry? Yes, I was pastor of 2 separate Baptist churches at various times. And I was a young pastor of one of the very big Baptist churches in South Africa. Was there a certain amount of wisdom in that? Again, hopefully, there must have been. But I look back at who I am at 67, and I understand that by sometimes bitter experience, sometimes by hard experience, sometimes by learned experience, the amount of wisdom that God has granted to me now. Oh, I wish I'd had it when I was 25 and 35 and 45. And that's what I encourage people to do. Go inside yourself, find out who you are first. Let's find out who you really are. Once you know who you really are, we can then start planning some directions. The problem is, Greg, that so many people then just close back off again. And alcohol becomes a reality, or some form of drug becomes a reality, or some form of living, which is maybe not the best form of living, becomes reality. And there's a sadness deep in my soul because I know that there's such possibility from 50 onward to be better than you ever were at 40, 30, 20.
That's right. And that's the benefit of having a coach, because a coach is going to not put up with excuses. So when you say you can't do something, they're going to if they're good, they're going to dive into why you don't think you can do something and help you see that maybe I can after all. And so that's what, yeah, absolutely. It's coaching for opportunity and possibilities.
I agree with you 100%, Greg. Greg, may I ask, how old are you?
I will be 64 in August.
There you go. You're the perfect illustration of somebody who is 64, into your 60s, who said, you know what? I'm still worth something. I can still do something. There is stuff that I can do. So let me do something that I've never done before. Perfect representation.
And
so well done.
Even better than that, because after I shut down my business as a RV journalist in 2019, I had no purpose in my life. I was completely blind to that. I was depressed. I was moody. I was just going through the motions of life until a coach contacted me and said, I'm sensing you're struggling. Can we chat for a bit? And he walked me through a process of realizing that where the opportunity existed. And he caused me to see that I was making excuses for where I was at that particular time and that there was more to life available to me. So it was coaching that pulled me out of that slump and actually worked to launch Forward from 50.
Perfect. Lovely story.
Yep. It brings clarity.
It does. Mm-hmm. And if, by the way, if it doesn't bring clarity, Greg, you got the wrong coach because they're not asking you the right questions. Coaching is meant to, of course it's meant to delve. Of course it's meant to get into some difficult areas. But yes, it's always meant to bring a greater degree of clarity, a reopening of eyes if they've gone closed, a reopening of your heart, of your soul, your spirit, if that's grown dark and dismal. Yeah, very much.
That's a very good point.
By the way, Greg, I've had a coach for 26 years.
You've had one yourself. Most coaches
have
at least one, if not two or three.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, he's known me for 26 years. And when I get on the phone to him, there's none of the niceties of, oh, how are you and how are things going? He just says, look, I know who you are. Tell me why you're phoning.
Okay.
And we just get straight into it. Within the first 15 seconds, we were into the meat of the matter. So it's always fascinating that.
That's neat. The old saying is you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And yet people need to invest in themselves. As we approach retirement, there's a lot of talk and a lot of advice on getting your financial house in order because you're making the right financial investments. But you really need to invest in yourself. What are some of the things that you do to invest in yourself?
There are two main areas of investment in myself, Greg. Number one is the books that I buy and read. I think I'm typical of good coaches, not just coaches, of people who want to invest in themselves. I have such a range of books and I read them and devour them. In South Africa, I couldn't bring all my books with me when I left South Africa. Just the shipping costs alone were going to be astronomical. But I had just over 5,000 books. And people would say to me, have you read them all? And I'd say, I've read 4,700 of them, and I'm busy with the next 300. Since I've been here in the UK, I don't have the space for my study. I had a study that was lined with bookshelves. But I must tell you that I normally am reading every month about 3 different books.
Wow.
And I like to read 3 different books at the same time so that I'm getting different perspective, different thoughts. Because it's amazing how knowledge intersects with knowledge and reading those books. The second thing I do is where there are workshops that are busy being presented by people that I respect, I put myself on them. I do. I'm a John Maxwell certified coach. I hold John Maxwell in high esteem. I do. And I took the time and the finance to fly myself across to Florida, stayed there for a week, went along and became certified. Is the certification the be all and end all? No. But sitting in a room with John Maxwell and hearing him talk and learning from him and then reading his books and then being challenged to look at other areas. Yeah, that was invaluable. So, of course, I invest on workshops and I invest in books.
I'm a Maxwell trained person as well. And you're right. Listening to John Maxwell speak is a unique experience because he is very powerful in his ability to get people to think outside the box about themselves and about the opportunities. If you had to go back, is there anything you would do differently in your life?
Again, it's one of those good questions, Greg. Would I change my time in the military? No. because it has provided me with a substance, a foundation, a strength that I don't believe I would have had were I not in the military. But I fought for South Africa in a racist army.
Mm-hmm.
It was a whites-only army, and all of the enemies at that moment in time were black men and women. And I grew into a radical. I did. I really did. For me, it was the people killing my men or attempting to kill my men were black people. And therefore, it was easy to translate 1 + 1 = 11 instead of just they're doing exactly what I was doing, just on the other side of it. So when I came out of the military, I mentioned that I was messed up. And I use that term quite literally. I was a messed up young man, 25 years of age. I was married. Both my boys had been born. I'd missed both of their births because of army commitments. I had a lot of work to do to move myself, and by the grace of God, to be moved away from radical racism to, I must tell you, I know people say there must be some small fragments of racism left in you. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I claim that I am non-racist, and my lifestyle and my words and my posts and everything that I do in my life will back that up. So would I change that? No, because even the exploration journey of finding out and realizing that I was this horrible racist man, act of transformation, and God's goodness brings it out. Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
Have you always been a man of faith?
I only became a man of faith when I was 20 years of age.
Okay.
I was in basic training. I was in the army already, and basic training, I met a young lady, my first wife. She was a Christian, and she was very dear to me. I will not go out with you unless you allow me to follow my Christian faith. And because she was doing it, I began to do it. I went to a lot of Bible studies, and the conviction of the Holy Spirit came upon me, and I found myself as a second lieutenant sobbing out my sins in front of a group of people that I didn't know, and thinking, what on earth am I doing? And yet knowing that was the moment that God stepped into my life. I was 20. So for the past 47 years, I've been blessed to be a child of God.
That's great. Do you have any advice for people over 50 on things that they can do to make their lives better, or things that they should be doing to pursue their purpose?
Again, Greg, it's one of those questions. Unfortunately, sometimes that answer, there's an answer to it, but it depends on a certain amount of finance. Because, of course, there are the normal answers that I trot out to you. It's a big world we live in. Go and explore some of it. That requires finances.
Mm-hmm.
One of the men that I'm busy coaching in the US right now doesn't have a lot of finances. He is 65 years of age, and he says, Mike, I feel that need to reinvent myself to do something different. Exactly what you're busy talking about. And I've been saying to him, and I shan't use his name because there is confidentiality, but I have been saying to him, so what are you good at? And we found a couple of things that he's good at. And all we're busy doing is extrapolating what he's good at. That's non-work related. And we're beginning to extrapolate those and exaggerate those to the point he now has a singing teacher. He's 65 years of age. He's got a singing teacher. Keeps on teasing me and saying, she's much more attractive than you are, right? I only keep you around because you're good. So I say, thanks very much. I say to people, find out what you're good at, and then start doing it to the next door neighbor. Start doing it to the person across the street. Get out there and explore areas that you might be tentative in, but you also know that that tentativeness can lead to something more than purely it's the fear that we have. So, of course, if you've got finance, get out there and explore part of this world. If you've got finance, reach into organizations, charities where you can help. Give some of your time to charities. Give some of your time to organization where the need is huge, absolutely huge. Become one of these surrogate fathers where you can take on young men, there's always young men who are struggling because they don't have a father figure in their lives. There just is the ability to widen our gaze and to say, I'm not linked to a job anymore. I don't need to have the finances. I can find something. So there's a range of different things that I say to different people, depending on their circumstances. Just let's find out what your circumstances are. Let's go for it.
I think for a lot of people, they have sensed they've been called into doing something. They've been given a unique talents and they've learned these skills and they've had unique experiences that have all been pointing them or pushing them, nudging them into a certain direction. And when they get to 50, that's the ideal time. They're done with their family responsibilities. And many times they have more financial ability than they have in the past. Now's the ideal time to launch into that and really embrace it.
That's great, Greg. I make a point, and that is of the coaching work that I do, I give away 20% of my time.
Wow.
So there are people that I'm coaching. For me, that's a double time moment. Mm-hmm. There are people that I coach that I don't charge. They are normally the CEOs or the leadership of charities. And I say to them, it's okay. Now, I'm quite happy to give you my time as long as we have the same set of rules that follow the coaching between myself and themselves. And it's been remarkable to see them coming to that same realization. I can do stuff that I didn't even know I could do. So yeah, you're right. Especially where finances allow. My goodness, that's an exciting time. I think that 50 and above should be one of the more exciting times of your life.
Exactly.
Than one of the more depressing times of your life because of the fact that you're getting older. So what, our bodies slow down? So what, they're a lot more stored than they used to be. So what? We up here have got the ability to do things that we couldn't do when we were less than 50 because of the restraints of, you're right, fatherhood, parenthood, job, demands, etc. So yeah, I'm with you all the way.
How do you find your clients overseas? If you're stationed in the UK, how do you get clients in America, for crying out?
All of them have come through LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I am as studious on LinkedIn in terms of putting posts out as I am on Facebook. It's not the same time. LinkedIn is a business platform. Right. And so I put things out on LinkedIn and you can find me, Mike Coote, that's who I am. The reality is that it staggers me that people will send me a message from the States or from New Zealand and just say, hi, I was reading one of your posts. I've reached a point in my life where I need to do something different. Would you be open to a conversation? Of course, my automatic response is, of course, let's just have an open conversation. And suddenly, there I have clients in the US, clients in Europe, clients in New Zealand, clients in South Africa, and of course, clients here in the UK, which is just, again, I know who Mike Coote is, and I'm blessed and humbled. I really am by what I'm entitled to do.
You had mentioned LinkedIn. Is there any other way that people can contact or connect with you?
Only those two. People find me on Facebook. In fact, one of my coaching opportunities has come through Facebook. I didn't expect that to come. I don't go pandering for service. All I do is I put out posts so that people will know that I'm genuine about who I am.
Good point.
And yes, there are testimonials on my LinkedIn page that people have spontaneously come to me. I think they're in the region of 35, 36 of the past 20 years. And I just look at them and I feel humbled by what people say I've been able to help them produce in their own lives. Yeah, LinkedIn, just let me tell you one thing I do on LinkedIn and Facebook. Every day on those two platforms, there are birthdays. So whoever I'm LinkedIn with, and whoever is on Facebook, if there's a birthday, I wish them a personal happy birthday. I personalize it. And it's not just a happy birthday. It's a happy birthday. I hope that your special day is filled with good things, wonderful people. I'll do that type of reading. I do that on LinkedIn. 3 of my clients have come from the fact that I send birthday greetings because they got hold of me and said, do I know you? I said, nope, you don't. Why are you telling me happy birthday? I said, because if I've accepted you as a friend, it means something. I don't just connect people. And they've said to me, that's the type of person I'd like to coach me. Somebody who takes the time to make me feel like a person. So a little thing, a birthday greeting.
That's great.
So yes, I do in the range of about 20 birthday greetings every day. And I love individualizing them and sending them out to people, which is great.
That's so wonderful because there's so many robots that are being employed now to post messages and things like that, and autoresponders. When somebody takes the time to write a note, a handwritten note to somebody, it really stands out. So doing even on Facebook and LinkedIn, when you're taking the time to write a personalized message to somebody, it shows that you care. and that you're genuinely interested in them. So that's great advice.
Thanks, Greg. Nobody ever advised me to do that, but I advise all of my clients, get to know your employees' birthdays, get to know the special days, the celebration moments in their lives, and make sure that you as a business, that you as the leader, that you as the owner, do something which just for that moment elevates them a little bit more. And the fruit that they have been reaping just from, hey, you know what? Here's a voucher, take your wife out for a meal for your birthday or for your anniversary. It's amazing, just amazing.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me today. It's been inspiring to me, and I'm sure others will be inspired as well. And I hope people check out your Facebook group, especially Uplifting, Inspiring, Informative, and Funny Quotes for Everybody. It's a mouthful, but it's worth it.
Maybe you could just write that out or whenever you send this out, Greg.
I will.
And of course, you'll allow me to have the link to this as well?
Absolutely. We'll be happy to send you a link.
You're a star. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for thinking of me. Thank you for allowing me. I've spoken a lot, and I hope that I haven't spoken over you too much. But I've thoroughly enjoyed both getting to meet you face-to-face for the first time and being able to speak about something that I'm really passionate about, and that is coaching, encouraging, lifting people up.
And helping them find and pursue their purpose. I'm glad I finally got the opportunity to talk to Michael Coote, an executive business coach who founded one of my favorite Facebook groups called Uplifting, Inspiring, Informative, and Funny Quotes for Everybody. Mike was absolutely correct in noting that anyone who has achieved anything of importance, especially in sports, has done so because they have had strong coaches. They tend to speak directly to their clients to help them see situations from a different perspective. Coaches aren't likely to accept excuses for thinking and behavior that hold people back from achieving what they say they truly want in life. I think Mike shows us that because of our vast life experience, people over 50 tend to make ideal coaches. It's not that they know everything and are the experts. Rather, people over 50 have such a wonderful perspective on life that would be invaluable to younger people, even those just a few years behind them. The key to being a good coach is to establish trust with others. Coaches are instrumental in helping older people to see their lives still have value and that they have important roles to play. Mike offered some excellent advice on how people over 50 can regain a sense of purpose when something like a job or business is taken away. It involves working with a coach who can ask the right questions to point their lives in a different direction. Coaches bring clarity even to difficult and confusing situations. One way Mike keeps his mind sharp, even at age 67, is through reading. He estimates he has completed more than 3,700 books during his life and currently has about 300 waiting to be read. He also attends workshops put on by other professionals, which means Mike is continuously learning. Mike loves to mentor other people, and he estimates that he gives away about 20% of his time. He has clients all over the world. One of the best ways Mike likes to honor and support other people is by sending personalized birthday greetings. It's easy to do, and it's just another way he likes to uplift people and make them feel better. People can connect with Mike on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Be sure to join his wonderful Facebook group, Uplifting, Inspiring, Informative, and Funny Quotes for Everybody. You'll be glad you did. That's all I have for this week's show. If you'd like help in identifying a purpose for your life or to get help planning your next steps, I'm offering a complimentary brainstorming session to members of the Forward from 50 Facebook community. For details, connect with me on Facebook or visit www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like this show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.